To get to the Abyss, we must go to the Isle of the Avatar. Where would you like to go?
Isle of the Avatar.
Avatar, why must you prolong the inevitable? Britannia is mine.
Lord British, what are you doing?
What does it look like, Avatar? The old man has accepted my challenge, and it's going to be the death of him.
I should have had you executed low these many years ago, Blackthorn. I suppose that I'll have to do it now.
No, my lord. I am your avatar. Let me fight this vermin.
No, Avatar. I have sat by and allowed you to fight my battles for far too long. It was my responsibility to rid Britannia of this menace following the destruction of the Shadow Lords. It was a job that I apparently left unfinished. Now I must finish that job.
No, my lord, wait!
No, Avatar, I'll not have you interfere.
You're looking weak.
I may yet surprise you.
Don't let the little fool you, British. I will.
Don't confuse luck with skill, my way. I may be old.
Lord British, what are you doing?
What does it look like, Avatar? The old man has accepted my challenge, and it's going to be the death of him.
I should have had you executed low these
No, my lord.
No, Avatar. It was
No, my...
no.
You're looking weak, old man.
I may yet surprise you.
Don't let a little bit of luck fool you, British. I will.
Don't confuse luck with skill, my boy. I may be old and gray, old and gray, old.
Lord British, what are you doing?
What? And
No.
you're looking weak, old man.
I may yet surprise you.
Don't let a little bit of luck fool you, British. I will kill you.
Don't use luck. I may be old and gray, but on my worst day, I can best 10 of you.
Just die.
There, 'tis finally done.
That was quite a display, my lord. I must say I am very impressed.
Yes. Well, I can assure you that I was never in any danger from that worm. There is a reason why I had to fight him, Avatar. You see, I have depended on you for far too long, Avatar. When first I created the quest to find an Avatar, I wanted the person who fulfilled the quest to be an example to all the people of Britannia. They were meant to emulate you, do the things that you did. Instead, the people came to depend on you to solve their problems, rather than solving the problems themselves. And I fear that I was the worst offender, my friend. Rather than going forth and encountering the evils that afflicted my own land, I called upon you to do it. But no more. No. The people of Britannia must learn to do things for themselves. We can't depend on one man forever.
Perhaps you are right, my lord.
I am right. Now listen. There is still much to be done that unfortunately only you can do. You must travel into the ethereal void to cleanse the shrine of spirituality. However, the moons have so corrupted the moon gates that you cannot use them to travel to the void. I will send you into the void, but you must first consult the Codex of Ultimate Wisdom. It contains the knowledge that you will need. Take the Codex to the Isle of the Avatar and place it upon the altar. Next, place the red and blue lenses on the appropriate pillar. Only then will you be able to consult the Codex. Once you have consulted the Codex, come back to my castle in Britain, and I will send you into the void. You must get the glyph of spirituality before I can teleport you out, for we cannot return. Farewell, my friend. Do you have the glyph?
Yes, I do.
Good. I will teleport you out. Meet me at the castle.
Hey there, babe. How did things go?
A little rough, but I'm all right.
Good to hear it. Okay, let's head back to Britain so Lord British can send you to the ethereal void. Where would you like to go?
Britain.
Avatar.
You're an inspiration to us.
Oh, good, you're here. Lord British is out on the West Castle grounds waiting for you.
Greetings, Avatar.
Well, I take it that you've consulted the Codex?
Yes, I have.
Excellent. I can cast a spell that will temporarily realign the moons and allow you to travel to the void. I fear, however, that doing so will speed up the doomsday process set in motion by the Guardian. Therefore, it is important that you come back here as soon as you have cleansed the shrine. Once you return, we must move against the Guardian. Are you ready?
I am indeed.
Very well. Let us be about it.
Greetings, Avatar. I see that you've made great progress on your quest since you killed me in Dastard.
I'm sorry about what happened, Jeffrey.
Please, let no such words pass between warriors. I succumbed to evil and so became a coward. That is past. I have been released from the evil and have found peace in the spiritual world. My thanks to you for sending me here. I'll delay your quest no longer, Avatar. Farewell.
There are other companions here who have lost their lives. We've gathered here to wait for you. Once you have cleansed the shrine, We will all be resurrected to help you in the last step of your quest. Go forth and greet your old friends. There are one. Go forth then.
Greetings, Avatar.
I'm sorry about.
Please, I have... Alden...
Speak now the mantra of spirituality. Thou hast earned an advancement.
You did it, Avatar! When you restored the final shrine, I was given my life back. I shall be forever grateful to you, my friend. We must return to the physical world by different paths. Meet me at Lord British's castle. He has a plan for the final defeat of the Guardian. Farewell, friend.
Enter the mantra of the shrine you would like to travel to. That path is clear, Avatar. Be careful on your journey. Enter the mantra of the shrine you would like to travel to. That path is clear, Avatar. Be careful on your journey.
Hello, Avatar. Greetings, Avatar.
Well, my friend, you've done it. You've cleansed the last shrine, and you've consulted the Codex. You know what you must do, and how you must do it. Are you ready to confront the Guardian?
My lord, I've been waiting for this moment for far too long. I'm more than ready.
Very well, then. You must be off to Turfin. That's where you'll find the Guardian. Go. Go and destroy him so that you may finally fulfill your destiny and move on from this place.
What about you, my lord?
I'll not be with you. This is something that you must do alone. Don't worry, though. The companions and I will be busy doing our part. There are things that we must do so that you may confront the Guardian.
But will I ever see you again?
No. You're made of something greater, Avatar. It's time for you to go. It's time for you to ascend. Farewell, old friend.
Goodbye, my lord.
Well, dear friend, this is it. Our roads must part. Don't forget that I owe you my life. Lo, those many years ago when the Shadow Lords appeared and pierced me with that magic arrow. You saved me then. I don't know where we'll come out at the end of this. But if you ever have need of me, call and I'll be there. If I have to cross worlds to come to your aid, I will. Remember your spirituality and you will succeed.
Hello, Avatar. Are you ready for the final push?
I suppose I'd better be.
Just remember that justice must be done. Always keep that in your heart. Goodbye, Avatar.
Well, this is goodbye, isn't it? I guess you figured out that I've harbored an unrequited love of you for some time now. Oh well, it's too late for regret, or for thoughts of what might have been. Just go knowing that I love you, and remember this always. The sacrifice that you have made, that of a normal life, is a noble one. You have done much for the Britannian people. And in your final act as the Avatar, you'll do still more for them.
Had I only known that you loved me.
No, I think that it's better this way. You were not meant to settle down. Goodbye, my love.
Hello there, Avatar. Never mind. We'll make a
See? I told you that we would meet again. We have stood together in the face of so many challenges and come through them all as boon companions. I remember dealing with that corrupt fool, Batlin, as though it were yesterday. I wish with my heart that we could go on this final adventure together, but it cannot be. We all have our roles to play, and they take us to different places. As you go forward, remember your honesty. It is your greatest attribute.
I'll miss you, Mariah.
And I you, old friend. Good luck.
Avatar. Good day, Avatar.
Come here and say goodbye to me, Avatar. Of all of the people that I've known in my long life, you have had the most cause to be proud. Yet you never were. You have always been the most humble of people, Avatar. I have always admired that in you. Keep that humility in your heart, and you will always do well. Goodbye, dear friend.
Brilliance falls on castle. Well, 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 Avatar. You're off to confront the Guardian once and for all, eh? Say, do you remember back when we were warring with the Gargoyles, and they had you on that altar and were just about to sacrifice you?
How could I forget?
Well, just don't forget that it was the quarrel from my bow that killed that Gargoyle priest and saved you. Farewell, my friend. Our journeys together will always be dear to me. Remember compassion, and you will always do well.
Look at me, as good as new. I'm ready to take on an army of goblins.
I'm surprised you're not already at the tavern draining the ale kegs.
Can you believe this, old man? You'd think that after having been dead for the last 20 years, he'd show a little respect.
Why? He never did before you died.
In all seriousness, look about you, Avatar. All of our old companions gathered here in one place and for one purpose. You did this, Avatar. You did all of this. And when we get rid of the Guardian, Britannia will be healed and whole again. You've long been a hero, Avatar. Thank you for all that you've done.
Dupre, you're the man whom I've always tried to emulate.
Thank you, friend. Now I think that we'd better get to work.
Come here and say goodbye to me, Avatar.
Well met, Avatar. I want you to know that meeting the Guardian toe-to-toe is an act of unprecedented valor. You are to be commended. Well, I've said enough. Go bravely, my friend.
Good day, Avatar. Good day, Avatar.